Today we're going to be picking the ideal transfers for Manchester United in the January window. All of these names were suggested by you guys at home on Twitter, including the need for a Marcus Rashford replacement. We've got players like Leroy Sane in there, Kudus in there. Up front, obviously, Victor Osimhen is on the screen. So let's crack on and see how we go. Everybody who made a suggestion wanted me to focus on the left wing-back role. So we've got 6 names in front of me that have been linked in some form or another with the club over the last couple of weeks. Now, I think we should preface this with Manchester United having a slightly increased budget because Marcus Rashford has come out publicly to say he wants a new challenge. If he leaves for a significant fee, that could potentially be used in the left wing-back slot. So how about Milos Kerkez as a pick? I think it would be a fantastic option. Still only 21 years old, plenty of Premier League experience under his belt already. 2,000 league minutes last year, approaching 2,000 league minutes already. One of the pressing triggers for the best pressing units in the entire league. Nobody produces more high turnovers in the Premier League than Andoni Iraola's side. So clearly he would be a great option. Do I see Bournemouth parting with him in January? I think it's pretty unrealistic. I think the fee will be large in the summer, maybe 50 to 60 million pounds, but it might well be worth it. This guy could well be one of the future superstars on the left-hand side in the Premier League. I'm going to put him in top summer target for right now. I really like the fit. I think he is achievable, despite the fact Bournemouth might end up finishing this season ahead of Manchester United. The wage, the stature of the club, the fee to Bournemouth might be enough to convince him. What about Anthony Robinson, who I still think has probably been the league's best left-back so far this season? Big assist numbers, big chance creation numbers, the most tackle and interceptions of any player in the Premier League so far this season by a significant distance as well. Part of an excellent Fulham unit, but unlike Kerkez, he's 6 years older at 27. He's more of a classic left-back, I think, in terms of his defensive output. His assist numbers might be great this season, but I still don't think he is the wide wing-back Amorim is necessarily looking for. He would be a good signing, and a good summer signing at that. It's certainly not unrealistic to say one day he might play for an elite top 6 side, but do I think it's the best fit for the 3-4-3 system? Not necessarily. Now, Kerkez is playing in a back 4 as well, but given his age at just 21, he might well be a little bit more adaptable to becoming a wing-back. Let's talk about Theo Hernandez, whose contract is up in 2026. He hasn't agreed a new one, and therefore Manchester United have slowly been linked. Interesting with players who are approaching the final couple of years of their contract, because quite often Manchester United's name will be used by an agent to get a better wage out of the club they're already at. And that might well be the case with Theo Hernandez. However, he has had very public fallings out with Fonseca. You think of Theo's all-round game, and it actually lends itself quite nicely to that left wing-back role, doesn't it? Excellent on the ball, an amazingly physical, progressive carrier. So good when he's got 20 yards of space in front of him just to burn, get to the byline. Huge creative and attacking output. A decent age, a leader amongst the side. Of course, he's the captain of AC Milan. But I just feel like at the moment where Manchester United are at, this is an unrealistic signing. Certainly unrealistic in January. I think if anything was to happen, it might well be in the summer. And even then, I really see him ending up going back to France. Could he go to PSG? That, for me, would be a very interesting option. And the reason I raise that as an option is the future of Nuno Mendes. He obviously joined PSG in 2022. He's out of contract, also like Theo, in 2026. Now, there have been pretty heavy rumblings of him signing a new deal. There's been opposing views that he hasn't signed a new deal and won't sign a new deal and wants to leave PSG. If that's the case, could Manchester United offer an option? It feels like a great natural fit. Let's not forget, Ruben Amorim has utilised Nuno Mendes before. He's still just 22 years of age. That was as a wing-back. He's now playing as a more classic left-back. He works under the same agent as Ruben Amorim. Could that sort of conversation take place? This is an absolutely outstanding option if you could get the deal done. Do I see it being a possibility? I think it's quite low level, but I would probably put him ahead of Milos Kerkez in terms of my targets on the left-hand side because of that connection to Amorim and because of his creative output in the final third. when you think of the best of Nuno Mendes, it's really on the ball, being able to drive the game forward with these outstanding progressive pass numbers, fantastic carrier of the ball, but also can contribute in the final third. Now, these numbers are slightly skewed because he's playing for PSG in Liga, so they're obviously going to be juiced. But even when he was at Sporting, as a prospect, he was one of the best prospects in world football in that left wing-back role. Alphonso Davies, I think we need to get real here. Unrealistic, not happening in January. I think it's unrealistic that it's going to happen in the summer. He's got better level clubs than Manchester United right now on the table. Clubs like Real Madrid, who are able to offer the same amount of money, if not more, a higher status, Champions League football consistently, and a shot at winning a trophy every single season. So I just don't see United being able to convince Alphonso Davies either in January or in the summer to join. As for Alvaro Fernandez, I think in January, Manchester United should be absolutely targeting that buyback clause. £15 million. I know Benfica fans in the last video I did about him were saying there's no way he's going to leave, there's no way. But the reality is the choice might well be taken out of their hands with that buyback clause if United can convince Alvaro himself to want to return. I personally think United need more than one left-sided player. Malacia's injury record is checkered, and that's an understatement. Luke Shaw is never going to operate in that wing-back role. If anything, he's going to become a left-sided centre-back because of the fitness issues, and even then, it's sketchy. So, in reality, you probably have space for two left-sided players. I would know Diego Leon is apparently joining next summer, but he's still only 17. That really feels like a Sekou Kone move, a Chido Obi Martins move, one for the future. Whereas Alvaro Fernandez and maybe even a Nuno Mendes battling it out in that left wing-back role, that's what I'm talking about. That is the competitiveness I want to see. Alvaro in January, and then potentially even another player in the summer. United need left wing-backs bad. All right, let's talk about the midfield. Could we see a player come through the door in the January window? Douglas Luiz has been linked recently. Now, Douglas Luiz has started really poorly at Juventus. I think across his entire Aston Villa career, he missed 16 games. At Juventus already in 6 months, not even 6 months, he's missed 9 or 10 games. He's not been part of a significant number of matchday squads. He's had no impact there. But in the Premier League, I really liked Douglas Luiz. You have a look at his numbers. This is from his final season at Aston Villa. On the ball, he was really, really tidy. An excellent passer between the lines. Really good pass progression numbers. Very calm and composed in tight spaces. A bit of a dog off the ball. Now, I'm not sure he's necessarily got the physicality United want, because that's what Amorim has really drilled into us in press conferences in recent weeks. But I do think he's a semi-viable option if Juve want to cut their losses early, which they might well do. Not in January for me, but I think he would be an okay summer signing. What about Ederson then? Now, I said on last week's video, I just think this is unrealistic. Atalanta are fully in the midst of a title charge. We want Gasperini to get his first Scudetto. They're not going to want to lose anyone in January. They lost significant players in the summer. They've got a big bankroll because of it. Ederson is staying in January. I just don't see it being realistic in this window. I know he's been heavily linked. I would be massively surprised if Atalanta let anyone go. Another target that's been heavily linked with the club is Nypan, who is still just 18 years of age. You might well remember him as the youngest player ever to play for Rosenborg. I think he was just 15 years old. Of course, he played against Manchester United in a pre-season friendly, which really got a lot of eyeballs on him. He is one of Norway's hottest talents. Very highly rated. Real Madrid, Barcelona, Man City, Arsenal, Liverpool, all have sent scouts to see this guy play. Feels like this one is edging towards a January move. Now, so far this campaign, I think he's started 25 games. He's got 14 goal involvements. It very much feels like he would be suited to one of the 2 10 spots at Manchester United. For a player who's 18, his physicality is excellent. His control in tight spaces is excellent. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. I haven't watched extensive Rosenborg games. I've watched highlight packages. I'm going to say after he got the calendar off of his teammates, with the news that's been circulating in Norway, this feels like it might well happen and he gets loaned back to Rosenborg. That would be my bet. Another player who has been linked with the club, Angelo Stieler. By now, you should know my thoughts on this guy. I absolutely think United should be doing all they can to get Angelo Stieler through the door. Now, that's not going to happen in January. His talent level is so high. This, for me, is one of the most underrated deep-lying playmakers in Europe. Despite the fact he's just 23 years of age, he comes from great pedigree, obviously a Bayern Munich Academy graduate, but the work he's done at Stuttgart cannot be underestimated. First and foremost, his progressive pass numbers are freakish. Over 8 per game. That is by far and away the most of any under-23 player in Europe. He's also really physical in transition and good at covering spaces on the cutback, which Manchester United have been extremely vulnerable in recent years. I just am convinced Stieler is going to be a star for somebody. It feels like he's going to end up at Bayern Munich or another top European club in a couple of seasons. Everybody's going to go, oh, why didn't nobody take a punt on him earlier? I know people were suggesting it as a potential January move. I can't see it. Okay, that takes us on to Marcus Rashford replacements. If he does leave the club in January, as has been touted, where could that money be spent and how could that money be spent? Well, a lot of suggestions here for Premier League players, and I think it's going to be really difficult to get players to move from Premier League clubs to Manchester United in that January window. Let's start though with Tyler Dibling, who has been heavily linked with United, particularly when Dan Ashworth was at the club. We even saw Russell Martin talking about that move and saying 21 million wouldn't even buy Tyler Dibling's left foot. Fair enough, that might well be true. Because what we've seen from Dibling early in his career playing for a pretty rubbish Southampton side are totally unnatural ball carrying numbers. These numbers, I know this is set up against midfielders, are still really impressive for an 18-year-old. He's surprisingly physical for a player that young too, able to knock players off and maintain possession in really weird areas. I like a lot of what I see from Tyler Dibling, and it feels like the time to get him is probably the summer. When Southampton get relegated, it's more likely they'll be in a position where they've got to sell. But does he fit Manchester United? We've seen basically all of his best work come off that right-hand side, where United have Ahmad performing to a really high level. Does he fit into a 3-4-3 system as one of the 10s? Does he play as a right wing-back? I can't see it. I think United will definitely be interested and it would be a good summer signing, but they're not going to be alone. There's going to be heavy interest in Tyler Dibling from clubs who are probably going to be able to offer him more minutes in a system that might well suit him better. Another suggestion was Matheus Cunha, who is having an absolutely astounding season. One of the best players, one of my favourite players to watch outside of the top 8. He's so fun on the ball. You can't get it off him. When he's dribbling at you, you're dead in the water. His progressive carry numbers are off the charts. Last season, he was scoring goals for fun. It was over 20 goal involvements last campaign, wasn't it? And I have little to no doubt he's going to breeze through that yet again. His overall profile, for me, suits one of those 10 roles in Amorim's system down to the ground. His pressing numbers are excellent. They always have been, going back to Hertha Berlin, going back to Atletico Madrid. The question marks have always been over his goal-scoring output because it's never been super high. You have a look at some of these numbers. It was only really last season we saw him be able to produce goals in the way he has. This season, though, it feels like he's that confident it's going to keep on happening. At just 25 years old, I don't think the reliance would be there from that 10 slot to score 20 goals a season. But if he could create like he is at Wolves and score 10 plus goals at United, I love the idea of this move. I really think Matheus Cunha would be a good fit for the system. I saw him liking comments about joining Manchester United on Instagram earlier this week. For me, he would be a top summer target. Wolves are a selling club. They sell at reasonable rates. They need cash because of the PSR restrictions that are facing them, despite the fact they sold pretty badly in the summer. You know, Kilman and Neto were big losses. Neto went for just over 50. If you could get Cunha for around what Wolves paid for him, it would be a brilliant bit of business for me. What about Mo Kudus, who, again, would just be a blockbuster fit in one of those 10 roles. A game changer for me. Him and Ahmad playing in one of the 10s. Ridiculous ability as a ball carrier. Nobody can touch him for dribbles in Europe. He's so far clear in terms of the numbers, but he would cost so much money. I think he would cost a significant amount more than Matheus Cunha. Cunha leaving Wolves. West Ham aren't going to want to lose him, but he has the buyout clause set at £80 million. I think that is a little bit unrealistic. I don't see United spending £80 million on any player in the summer window. Now, there's no doubt he would be maybe the best fit of any of these players for those roles, and certainly have the highest ceiling of any of these players. But are United really going to spend £80 million on a player? I'd be shocked. What about Morgan Gibbs White? Lots of suggestions for him coming in January. Well, first and foremost, Nottingham Forest are flying this season. They are not going to lose any of their players. They're not going to want to lose Morgan Gibbs White in the January window. And I don't think Manchester United are going to have the funds to pry him away from them in the January window. What about in the summer, though? He is a Manchester United fan, born and bred. He's a year younger than Cunha. He is 24 years old. But the numbers aren't as impressive as Cunha's. His underlying numbers or his actual output. He's a really beautiful player to watch, though, Morgan Gibbs White. When he's on the ball, he's extremely silky in tight spaces. Beautiful footwork. He has a little bit of that quality that is hard to quantify in data, where you just want to watch him play. The way he moves, the way he flows with the ball. He's got good tenacity as well. I think he'd be a good summer signing. As for Leroy Sane, not for me. I would put him in unrealistic, but his injury record is just so checkered. Even since he got to Bayern Munich, who classically have been the masters of improving players' physicality, still checkered. He's got the history of playing for Manchester City. Excellent player, but just not my vibe. Let's have a look at some striker suggestions then. We've only got 2 players in that January window so far. A left wing back, who is young, and a prospect, really, in Nypan. So, could Victor Osimhen be a little bit of a game changer? Lots of talk about his clause. What is it? Some are saying it's 100 mil. Others in Napoli are saying it's 70 million pounds in January. It's 60 million pounds in the summer. It's all a bit confusing when you read the reports about Victor Osimhen and his release clause. Partly that comes down to the fact, his agent and him sort of botched that summer transfer so badly he ended up in Turkey. But even in Turkey, his numbers have remained pretty excellent. He is an XG monster. He's been an XG monster his entire career, even going back to his time in League A. A shot volume beast. Again, going back years now, he classically averages over 4 shots per 90, which is a similar sort of number to Erling Haaland. He always finds space in the box. An amazing channel runner. One of the most athletic players in world football. His standing jump is ridiculous. So certainly he's going to have suitors. And why should Man United not be one of them? Honestly, I think he fits a Ruben Amorim system beautifully. I really do. I think there's a lot of positives to a potential Osimhen to Manchester United deal. Chelsea with Jackson don't necessarily need one. No other club was really that interested in the summer window. The problem is probably wages and agents' fees, which United historically have just ended up paying, but under Ineos might be slightly different. If United have a shot at getting a player like Victor Osimhen, they must go for it, because currently the forward line does not have enough goals. And I think it's pretty much impossible he'd leave Gala in January. But in the summer, for me, Osimhen would be a lot cheaper than Victor Gyokeres, probably cheaper than Vlahovic, because the fallout he's had with Napoli is so public. They will really just want rid. At the end of the last summer, it felt like they would have taken anything for Victor Osimhen, but he ended up going to Gala to protect a little bit of value. If United came in at 65, 70 million pounds, Osimhen might not have too many options on the table either. He's ended up at Galatasaray in the summer. He must be tempted by a club like Manchester United if they came to the table, and Chelsea weren't there, PSG still weren't there, Bayern are sorted with Kane. And United need firepower, man. There's no goals in that forward line. I might start getting on the Osimhen to United train. I might start pushing that agenda. Let's talk about Liam Delap, who would no doubt be a good summer signing, but not a January signing. He's just joined Ipswich. Man City have the buyback clause, or at least a matching clause. They are desperate to stay in the league, and Liam Delap is a vital way of doing that. He's been one of the best strikers in the entire division. His physicality has totally transferred from youth football. Like Gary O'Neill said, was it at the weekend? I used to watch Liam Delap chucking people out of the way at youth level, and he's just doing it again at the Premier League. He's so strong. He's always been so strong. He's been brilliant for Ipswich, and there's no way they're going to lose him in January. But in the summer, if Ipswich were to go down, I hope they stay in the league, but if they were to go down, there's going to be a lot of interested parties. I saw David Ornstein talking about Manchester United, Chelsea, Man City being interested in him. I could see that in the summer. As for Victor Gyokeres, I think it's unrealistic, honestly. United, again, at 100 million euros, people will be saying, well, you've got Osimhen in there. How's that realistic? Seriously, I think he's going to go for less than Gyokeres. Gyokeres at 100 million euros is untouchable for United. Victor Osimhen, because he's fallen out so badly with Napoli, is surely more obtainable at this stage, which is mad to say because his ceiling is just crazy. Osimhen, he's still only 25 years old. That's younger than Gyokeres, by the way. As for Kolo Muani, I mean, a 6-month loan in January? Could we see that? Eintracht Frankfurt numbers were great. PSG numbers have been horrible. Ever since that World Cup final, it feels like he's been up against it. A 6-month loan of Kolo Muani? United need options, and I don't think that's the worst. A 6-month loan, no option to buy, no obligation. But if United haven't got much money, need another attacker, and we can somehow get Kolo Muani back to his Frankfurt form, I just don't see anybody else on this list being a realistic January get in the striker position, and United need a striker. As for Dusan Vlahovic, again, I think he'd be a good summer signing. I would be surprised to see him join Manchester United. We talked about on last week's show the fallout with the Juventus Ultras, but having said that, a lot of Juventus fans in the comments were talking about the fact they need to sign a striker and not let one go, which is totally fair enough. You know, you guys watch Juventus more than I do, but I do feel like Vlahovic himself in the summer might well be tempted into a move. So what do you guys at home think? There is my list. 3 January arrivals. I just don't think United have loads of money to spend, but lots of top summer targets, including my new agenda to get Victor Osimhen to the club. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, hit subscribe.